A man who claims to be leading without followers is just taking a walk. So it points to what you are saying, that the followers need to do something. But Nigeria is a very peculiar situation. They have weaponized poverty that the masses, the followers, don't even have a voice to challenge or to rise up against their leaders. They have weaponized poverty, have subjugated the people to the extent that whatever a leader does is good. Even when leaders do what they are paid for, political leaders, while they are elected for the office, we see us clapping for them. Again, because of how our politicians have handled Nigeria, there is this theory of creeping normalcy. What that means is that bad things start creeping and incrementally and start accepting them as real things until they get to the extent that we felt is normal. So that's what has happened in Nigeria. And this was introduced by Nigerian leaders. The destruction of the medical facilities, medical healthcare, destruction of education. The education, that what happened right before me. You remember how private school started? Those days, when you attend private school, you are taken to be somebody who is below par. Private universities. We started with private nursery school, private secondary schools. Now we moved into private university. Gradually, it was like, school will be on strike 1 week, 2 weeks, and so on. And they destroy the system that people can't even talk again. It's now, how do we survive? People would, I agree with you to a certain extent, but the blame is on the top.
Good evening, and welcome once again to your weekly delight, the Glasscast podcast. Several times people ask questions about leadership. What is leadership? What does it entail? Who is a leader? You that is watching us today, who is your leader? In your organization, are you the leader? In your homes, are you the leader? Well, for some of us who have been looking forward to attend leadership masterclass, this is a starting point. We have a leadership guru with us this evening. So on this note, I want to welcome us once again to Glasscast podcast, where we discuss issues of great importance, issues that are educative, that are informative, and that will drive your instinct to know more. So welcome, sit right back this evening because we have a very important discussion. So with me in the house today, I'll start by my immediate left. We have an intellectual guru in our midst. So when I say it's an intellectual guru, he has a very long CV. And if we decide to read it this evening, it will be too long for us to do. But we'll summarize it. So I want to introduce to us the person of Professor Christian Harrison. He's a professor of leadership and enterprise at the University of Greater Manchester. You'll be glad you are here this evening because you are going to learn a lot from Professor. Professor, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Harry. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And again, we have our very own elder in the house. I call him the senior advocate. He's Dr. Barrister Sylvester Elder Oscar Liam. He's a very, he's an intellect personified. So we are here this evening to make you learn a lot about leadership this evening. So without wasting too much of our time, I want to say welcome once again to this episode.
Thank you, doctors. It's always a pleasure having you in this panel. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right.
And Prof, you're welcome. It's good to have you as always.
Thank you very much, Oscar, for inviting me.
Good. So, like I would always say, we bring you very interesting subjects. And I would encourage you, sit right back. If you need a cup of water or your popcorn, bring it closer because we are going to learn a lot this evening. Again, for you to understand where we are coming from, always go to our page. And when you are looking at our page, you see that bell, that ring bell button there. Don't just look at it. Just click on it, subscribe, so that you get notification when we bring up new episodes. So without wasting much of our time, let's discuss with Prof this evening. Prof, you're welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
So, I've done brief introduction, but for those that, don't know you too well, I would like you to, tell us a little bit about your journey as a professor, a Nigerian professor in the UK. You don't find that all over the place, it's one in a million. So I would want you to introduce yourself briefly.
First, thank you very much for doing this. I think it's a very laudable initiative, running a podcast of this nature. I think it's apt and it's timely as well. So It's a pleasure to be here. I think last time I was speaking in Arise, or was it? I think it was Arise, and somebody was saying, "Wow, are you a professor?" I expected to have all the white beard and all that. I expected to see this without the white beard. How come that you're this young? I think it was one of the media houses. I had an interview, and the first thing I saw of the headline was how I became a professor at the age of 35. I was like, often everything I said, that was the only thing that the media could picture in everything I've said. So I think it's a privilege to have been a professor at an early age, if I'm to say that. But still, little about myself. Like you said, I'm Christian Harrison. First of 3 kids. So I'm Nigerian. I always say that I'm not originally Nigerian. I'm still Nigerian. I'm proud to be Nigerian. And I used to be a pharmacist before I decided to make my life more interesting by moving into academia. I always tell people I didn't like money too much. That was why I decided to go into academia. But I think it was serendipity, to be fair. So those days when there was no jackpot, if I were to say, because now a lot of people are moving to the UK, I decided to go and do my master's in the University of Aberdeen. So I was a pharmacist, really. So in that sense, I remember then when my previous dean, God bless his soul, he's late. So I was one of the best students. I had a distinction in pharmacy, or first class. Wow. And he said, Christian, he sat me down and told me, Christian, I want you to remain in academia. I want you to be a lecturer. And I told him, I was like, this guy doesn't understand. How can he think I'm going to become a lecturer? I want to go and make money. Well, he told me something. He told me that you will still come back. And somehow, of course, I'm back. So after that, I left pharmacy, went to Aberdeen then to do my master's, finished as the best graduating student as in an MBA class then. And that was how the opportunity came. And I was told, like, hey, are you thinking of doing a PhD? Do you want to become a doctor? As a pharmacist, I used to have friends that were doctors. And they used to tell me, you're just a pharmacist. You're not a doctor. I said, okay, I cannot become a doctor, isn't it? So I can tell my pharmacy friends that I'm not a doctor. So that was it, really. I was okay. Let me start this doctoral journey. So definitely, I started the doctoral journey. I had a PhD. Luckily for me, I got a job as a lecturer. Moved up the ranks from lecturer, senior lecturer, reader, and of course, I'm a professor at the moment. As a professor, I'm also the director of the Center for Leadership and Empowerment. I do a lot of consultancy. I was the chair of the British Academy of Management as well, the leadership group. I'm the chair for the Academy of African Studies, written several books on leadership. I always tell people I talk leadership, I write leadership, and I do leadership. So I do all that. And so I try to do the best I can and to support, of course, other people, the younger ones.
Wow, this is interesting.
Thank you, Dr. Yeah. Prof, let me ask you, this transition, it looks dramatic and it looks too good to be real. You don't see that very often. Somebody, a pharmacist, a first-class pharmacist for that matter, a distinction in master's program, MBA, and PhD, I'm sure you would have done it in record time. How do you have any regrets making this dramatic transition, moving from one end of the career to another end? Is that something you look back and regret?
The funny part is my mother was always saying, "Oh, why did you leave pharmacy? You should have done your doctorate in pharmacy." And the funny part is, I spoke to one of my friends today. He just came from Nigeria, and I was telling him, like, after going through all the rigor, how hard to study pharmacy, you decided to leave pharmacy and start going into the social sciences. I don't have any regrets at all, because I always feel that there's a reason for everything. I'm always the person that in every opportunity I have, I try to make the best use of the opportunity. Yeah. And like you said, I finished my PhD in 2.5 years, so I did it in record time as well. So if I have an opportunity, I would try to be the best in that. As a pharmacist, the good thing about the pharmacy profession, I liked to talk. So while I was a pharmacist, I was more like into counseling and talking. So I'm still using the same skill sets that I was able to use while as a pharmacist in what I do. So really, there is no regrets for me, although my mother might disagree and say, no, I wanted to have that. But I'm happy, of course, because of my role as a professor, I'm able to impact people's lives. I think for me, one of the reasons why I studied pharmacy then was to impact others. I didn't want to do medicine because I felt as a medical doctor, you're only just saving one life. But as a pharmacist, you can produce a medication that will save thousands of lives. And that's the same mentality I have as a professor. I believe that I can save and impact people's lives, and that's leadership for me.
Doctors, I know you are bubbling with some questions, but please let me take on Prof again.
No problem.
Prof, on this issue of you making this transition, I still find it intriguing and unbelievable, to be honest.
Especially to do it, first class pharmacy, distinction MBA, finish PhD in 2.5 years.
And to move this way.
And become a professor at 35 years.
I was watching show already the other day. He said he has told Nigerian pastors that if they convert their churches to factories, that they will save more lives and do more miracles. That he has told the one in Dunamis, Pastor Dr. Paul Enenche, that if he should convert his church, the man is a doctor, Pastor Dr. Paul,
and the wife.
And the wife is doctor. He has told them that their 100,000 seater capacity, if they convert it to hospital, they will save more lives. But they don't want to hear anything about him again. But that's what I'm saying. Just a kind of drawing an analysis from that. Prof, don't you think that, and from the beginning, you said you still introduce yourself as a Nigerian, not that I used to be a Nigerian. Don't you think that you would have been more impactful staying as a pharmacist than making this transition because of what we are passing through in Nigeria? We know of the medical crisis, the jackpot of medical practitioners and so on. Wouldn't you think that would have been something would have been more useful for us as staying as a pharmacist?
I think I get where you're coming from, Oscar, but I think I would have been more useful for you and more useful for you right now as a leadership expert, because I'm able to knock on doors. Like every time I'm in Nigeria, I'm talking through Arise, Silverbird channels. I'm able to go into support the government. I do a lot of work that shows my impact as a pharmacist.
Which government? Nigerian government. I'm going to come to that.
so I'm able to support the government, both Scottish government, both Nigerian. So I think as a pharmacist, it might have been more difficult for me to do it. But right now, with my expertise as a leadership expert, people listen to what I have to say, and to me, that's important. Yes, maybe as a pharmacist, who knows, I would have gotten the medication that could have solved the Nigerian crisis or the pandemic, who knows. But I strongly believe that in life, it's just about the opportunities you have, you take them. And I have no regrets. I feel I'm doing the best I can with what I'm really doing.
Prof, I wanted to, because we made mention of your mom, typical Nigerian mothers, they want to answer, my father.
My doctor. My lawyer.
Yeah.
Don't mistake about that.
Yeah, and I believe your mom was looking forward to answer my pharmacist. But you changed the narrative. How did she accept not being... although she's still a ma pharmacist, but she's now, it's a kind of combined honor, ma professor as well, even though the pharmacy is not part of it. How was her feeling? When
I think my professor is better for her. My professor is better. I think when she was my pharmacist, pharmacist. When she became my doctor, she was still like, she didn't really feel it. But my professor or her, especially when she sees my books, when she sees me on TV, Said, that's my son. And she sends the links to everybody. But as a pharmacist, she won't have been able. Of course, if I had more money, maybe there'd be more income coming in. As a pharmacist, who knows? But I think she's proud. One of the things that really happened, you won't believe, and this is another story. I can remember my daughter then. She told me one day, like, okay, Daddy, you're a fake doctor, not a real doctor. Like, what do you mean? And my friend, her daddy is the real doctor, he's the medical doctor, but you're just I don't know the kind of doctor you are. I said, okay, no problem. Because of her, I said I'll become a professor, so that she will not call me a fake doctor again.
Prof, listen, you said my daughter came back from school one day. I was telling me that the teacher asked her if the father is a real doctor. I said, if you go back, tell them that I have a PhD. Whatever they want to make out of it, let them.
I'll tell you,
let them go ahead. But that's an aside. Let me deep down let's drive deeper into the issue of leadership. You're an expert in that area. Probably may not scratch what you know. You know, I know about leadership philosophies. We have the strategic leadership philosophy. We have the servant leadership philosophy. We have the strategic, collaborative, autocratic. Which one do you think is up there in terms of the philosophy or the strategy that's best? Generally, I'm going to come specific to ask you which one you think is better for Nigeria.
Okay. Now, I like your question, Oscar. Very good question. As a leadership expert and scholar, I've written several books on leadership. So I just so many theories. I always tell my colleagues there are so many theories as there are people. When you Google leadership theories every day, now we had the pandemic, so we have crisis leadership now. With everything that was happening, adaptive, resilient leadership, responsible leadership. So you have just so many theories. You have over 100 theories of leadership, really. Yeah. Then, I remember when I did my PhD then, I looked at entrepreneurial leadership. I believe that leaders have to be entrepreneurial. Leaders have to be able to recognize opportunities. They should take risk. So I'm very entrepreneurial in that sense. So I've written so much on entrepreneurial leadership. My PhD students have also done their thesis on entrepreneurial leadership. But going back to your question, what leadership approach am I more aligned with? Okay. Which one do I think is very pertinent, especially with what's happening in the world today? I would say servant leadership. I think for me, that's what I've been pushing the last several years now. I believe that leaders should be servants. It's always like a paradox when you think about leaders. Many leaders always feel like, people should serve them. But I think we have to change the paradigm. Leaders should be there to serve others. Leadership is about service, not about position. It's not about status. And for me, that's important. I had a PhD student several years ago that tried to find out, can servant leadership be applied beyond religion? And for me, that's important. We need leaders that can serve. That's the issue with political leadership, because many politicians, they don't believe that they are there to serve people. They believe that people should serve them. And that is a fundamental failure. So for me, so many leadership theories, but I'm more aligned to leaders.
Okay, I think it does your personal view, which I'm not going to argue with, even though I might differ on that. What's your thoughts about political leadership? Because to me, as a person, it may not be your view. I believe political leadership is the biggest and the pivot of all. When we were in university, one of my friends said there are 2 G's that can kill and nobody will question. One of the G's is God. The second G is government. And when you talk about government, I'm not talking of extrajudicial killing. When court sanctions and somebody has to be executed. And once that happens, nobody questions. So government, which is politics, is very, very fundamental and important. What is your thought about the issue of political leadership? As I'm of the opinion that is the fulcrum or is the center, it holds everything. And once that is lacking, the society will disintegrate. Before you come to entrepreneur or economic...
because I don't view political leadership as a theory of leadership. Okay. I view political leadership as a leadership adopted by politicians, in the sense that leaders, as a politician, you need to know the type of leadership that you have to apply. So in political leadership now, you might be saying, as a political leader, I want to be a servant leader. I want to be entrepreneurial. I want to be able to apply resilient leadership. I want to be adaptive. So it's more like saying, okay, there's political leadership is a fulcrum that incorporates different theories of leadership.
Okay.
So yes, there's a political leadership, but it is a context. It is not really a theory. So in my case now, what I'll be saying is that yes, there's political leadership. So you need leaders, political leaders that are politicians. Of course, they need to think about how to apply leadership. So in that case now, what I strongly believe is what type of leadership theory should political leaders apply?
Okay. Thank you so much for making that clarification. That's why we have an expert here. But thank you so much. At least our viewers, that has been clarified and they've been able to learn that. That's why we are here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I believe we would push, further this idea of leadership styles and patterns. But because we've, come towards the political aspect of leadership, I think it's important we take it heads on. Again, I want to relate it to what you said earlier, that you have been speaking to the media houses in Nigeria, Arise, Silverbird, and all that, and I believe you have been giving them this insight about leadership, including political leadership. So I would want to get your perspective as a leadership scholar. What you think is the most pressing leadership challenges Nigeria is facing today? We use Nigeria to mirror, most African countries, but let's use
I think I would, after Prof answers, I would have comment on that, not a question, my personal view, since you brought Nigeria.
Yeah, I think it's important to just...
I'm happy you said that, because I said it from the beginning, I'm of Nigerian, so it's always good to see how we can support Nigeria. But I like what you said. Most of the time, it could also be transferable in the sense that what applies to Nigeria might likely apply to other developing countries as well. But one thing about Nigeria, as you can see, it's strange because in Nigeria you have over 220 million people. That's one of in population wise, one of the biggest, one of the biggest
in the world,
in Africa. And GDP wise, we are quite massive. We have, if you look at in the banking sector, we're leaders in the banking sector as well. And you can see even in fintech, we're doing quite well. So there's a problem, isn't it? There's this, I always say that we are sleeping giants. Something is wrong somewhere. Why is it that Nigeria has not been able to move from where we are to where we can be? And it's leadership. It's almost like ineffective leadership. Our leaders have failed in the sense that in form of vision, we lack visionary leaders. That has been the problem. I always say that I have an approach. I call it the vested approach.
Okay.
And for me, it's so important. And the vested approach incorporates key things. First, we need visionary leaders. We need leaders because at the end, what's the vision? Vision is about painting of how the future is going to look like. You have to have a clear plan. Okay, this is how. I have a dream. Look at the UAE. Look at Singapore. Something changed. They had a vision. The leaders had a vision. Nigeria has had so much crude oil for the last couple of years.
We had Vision 2010, Vision 2020. I think now it's Vision 2030.
We're having visions upon visions.
And we've still not got in there. So it's so important that we need to, that vision is key. And that has been a big challenge. That has been a big leadership challenge, is the vision. Painting the picture, okay, this is where we want to be and this is how we are going to get there. You spoke about Vision 2020, but the problem now, you have a dream. But if you don't have a plan, you're going to be a daydreamer. How do you attain
Prof,
that?
Let me interrupt you in this vision you mentioned. I'm still going to come back to my point. Today is 23rd or
23rd, yeah.
23rd. Between 20th and 22nd, there was this Tokyo International Conference on African Development. They call it TICAD 9. I think the 9th edition of it is taking place in Tokyo. And in a conference and exhibitions like that, different countries were supposed to have their stands where there is bits, their things, the things they are known for, their products, their materials to attract their capability, showcase what they are known for, what they can produce. Where investors will walk into their booths, normalist vision to see what can we do with this country, what can we do with this set of people. And it might interest you to know that on the first day of the exhibition, if you see the Nigerian booth, it was empty all the way to Tokyo. In Tokyo, there was nobody there. They had nothing to exhibit. Even if it's Ankara or whatever, nothing. It was an empty booth. And they went with hundreds of delegates. So what vision did they have for going for that conference? But they're telling us they're making those visits to attract foreign direct investment and foreign investors. So that's the kind of vision we are talking about that Nigerian politicians have.
And I think
this was just
I think President Tinubu,
he went from Brazil to Japan now. It's not like he was there. He went. And the Minister for Trade and Investment has not said anything about it. But just that's interrupting the issue of vision.
So if I may clarify here, so I think what we are looking at is the political leadership now, because if you go to the business world, Nigeria is doing fantastic. Dangote is there, or the banking industry, the finance industry, Nigeria is doing fantastic. So I think where we are,
I will disagree with you on that.
Okay, please.
I have lived in Nigeria. I probably lived in Nigeria more recently than you, so I'm in a better position to tell you. In Nigeria, in any society where you don't have a middle class, you can't say that society is doing well or succeeding.
Okay.
In Nigeria, it's either you are stupendously rich or you are destitute, you are poor. And in any society, I remember growing up, my father was a classroom teacher, but we were middle class. Yeah, but you can't find that kind of thing in Nigeria now. And you're talking about bankers doing well. The bankers, the owners of the banks are the ones smiling big home at the end of every year. I can tell you, count 10 people that jackpot from the banking sector. And you don't assess a society by people who drive big cars, by people who live in big houses. What are the institutions? What is the healthcare? Human development index? All those kind of things. Why do you assess that? How do you assess that in Nigeria? Do you know how many companies have left Nigeria in the last 2 years alone?
So I think it's still a question of political leadership.
Yes, it is. So when you say the other economy is doing well, it's not doing well in any form or shape. People are begging. People are eating from the West Dump in Nigeria.
I think Prof may have a divergent view.
No, I think I know where Henry is coming from, because of when Henry is talking about when you look at leadership across maybe education, because leadership is not just about the government or the politicians.
Exactly. Yeah.
You also have leadership within the health sector, and within the health sector, you may have fantastic leaders, or leadership within finance, leadership within education. So in every part of the world, really, the truth is, in every sphere of life, there's always a leader. Even leadership in the church or leadership in the mosque. So I get where Henry is coming from, but I understand that at the level of the government, it influences every other form of what happens.
I agree with you on that.
Within the world and within the organization. So the plans of the government and the strategies of the government will definitely affect how the middle, the people, of course, the low earners, the high income learners, the banks will operate. So those policies would definitely affect how Nigeria is going to be, or even not just Nigeria, really, the whole world. So and that's why we have to think about the leaders, of course, at the level of the government, because their policies will definitely affect how.
Prof, if I may follow up to what we are just saying now, looking at Nigeria today, do you think Nigeria is succeeding in terms of that political leadership?
Very interesting question, Henry. And the answer is, I think we can do more. That's what I would say. I'm a very optimistic person. I'm quite pragmatic. I can't say that the present government has not done anything, because of, you can see that there are things that everybody wants to do, but it's unfortunate that we are still here at the moment. We're still discussing about things that we should have done. At the moment, power should not be an issue. I was in Botswana a couple of weeks ago, and these are not things that we're discussing about at the moment. These countries have steady power supply. So there's some things that how come that for these people is a given. So it's unfortunate that we are still facing challenges at this point that we should not be facing. So and that's why it's important that they listen to the podcast, they listen to what we're trying to say, and because that's the only way Nigeria will change. So the answer to that is we're not there yet.
Can I answer my personal view on that?
Because I think I know where the direction of your view.
Prof, we have not started.
We have not started.
That's my personal view. We've not started. My friend said speed on the wrong lane is not an advantage. Where you're supposed to be going north, and you're facing south, hitting 70 miles per hour is no advantage. You are going in a very wrong direction. And one of the fundamental things you will notice about Nigeria is, for one of the things a leader should be known for is accountability. You agree with me, even though I'm not a professor of leadership. It's accountability, but there's no accountability in Nigeria. Ability to follow through with your promises, keep your words, and take responsibility for your actions. Now, I'll give an example of what is happening in Tokyo. Up till now, nobody has been fired. Nobody has been queried. In this country, in the United Kingdom and in the West, you don't have a second chance. If you make a mistake, that is the end of you. You go. There is accountability. I know lots of Nigerians, we watch Premier League football. Have you asked yourself, you see a manager at the beginning of this season, in the next 2 months, they'll start firing managers? Yes, because they have failed. And once they fire a manager, bring in a new one, you will see that team. You will see the difference. You see that the new leadership, they bring a new manager, new leader, you see things change. But in Nigeria, everybody is on his or her own. I remember in 2022 or 2023, there about when Liz Truss was the prime minister of this country, when mortgage rates went up, pension funds were about to crash. My brother in Lagos called me, Elder, what's happening? Oh, Britain is scattering. I told her, in the next 1 or 2 weeks, this woman would go as the prime minister of Britain. He said, what? I said, yes. He said, why am I saying that? I said, there is accountability in this country. What is going to happen is different MPs will tell her, if you don't come down, you are going to lose this election. Their constituents will phone their MPs who will now reach the prime minister. And 2 days after, he was the one who even informed me, because I was at work. He was calling me like desperately. I didn't know what he was calling. I stepped out to take the call. He told me, Liz Truss has resigned. I said, I'm not surprised. Now it's you you are the one who is surprised, because there is accountability, and that's leadership. But in Nigeria, do anything, get away with it. They promote you. We reward incompetence. We reward mediocrity.
Elder, can I take you on that? Because when you are talking about accountability, the accountability actually begins from the people. Because if the people are not accountable, I don't know how they would, want their leaders to be accountable. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
When the Liz Truss issue, we were all here when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
She took a decision with her chancellor, and the economy was kind of spooked because they were trying to make promises that are not funded. So the economy responded, the people responded, the media houses, like you made mention of Rise in Nigeria and Silver Bed. I don't know what they are doing. When the issue of Liz Truss happened, you could see all media houses in the UK, they were on it. And the pressure, you could see the pressure. The people are expressing their views, because if the people relaxed, the media houses relaxed, they will say, okay, I think that decision is a good decision, and they will move on with it.
Yes.
So,
to a large extent, probably you are drawing your analysis from this a quote from these leadership experts. Even though I'm not one, I read them. Leadership expert John C. Maxwell, Prof. You should know him very well. He said, a man who claims to be leading without followers is just taking a walk. So it points to what you are saying, that the followers need to do something. But Nigeria is a very peculiar situation. They have weaponized poverty, that the masses, the followers, don't even have a voice to challenge or to rise up against their leaders. They have weaponized poverty, have subjugated the people to the extent that whatever a leader does is good. Even when leaders do what they are paid for, political leaders, while they're elected for the office, we see us clapping for them. Again, because of how our politicians have handled Nigeria, there is this theory of creeping normalcy. What that means is that bad things start creeping and incrementally, and we start accepting them as real things until they get to the extent that we felt is normal. So that's what has happened in Nigeria. And this was introduced by Nigerian leaders. The destruction of the medical facilities, healthcare, destruction of education. The education, that what happened right before me. You remember how private school started? Those days, when you attend private school, you are taken to be somebody who is below par. Private universities. It started with private nursery school, private secondary schools. Now we moved into private university. Gradually, it was like, school will be on strike 1 week, 2 weeks, and so on, and destroy the system that people can't even talk again. It's now, how do we survive? People would, I agree with you to a certain extent, but the blame is on the top.
But the leaders are product of the society. They are the product of the people.
Well, the leaders, they created the people.
All right. Let's.
I think what you said is important, and I get where you're coming from, Oscar. Accountability is very key, and I like the quote you mentioned by Maxwell. But at the end, you can't be a leader if you don't have followers. And I strongly believe that I get what you're trying to say, that the leaders have weaponized poverty, but we need followers that can hold leaders accountable.
Exactly.
So that's the truth. We need to hold our leaders accountable. What you're saying about Liz Truss, it was because of the followers held her accountable. If nobody said anything, they should have been there.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I had an interview as well. That was with Scottish television. And they were saying, like, okay, leaders can change their mind. And why did she change her mind? It was all because people had to push her and say, yes, this is not the best thing you've done, because leaders can always make mistakes.
Okay,
but if we as followers we don't stand for something, because at the end leaders are dead, they're also human. But we as followers should be able to say, no, this is what we want from our leaders. This is what we expect from our leaders. I totally understand that. Of course, in a place like a developing country like Nigeria, sometimes when you if you're giving money or something, you will back something. But we need to sit up and we need to.
Can I take you on that? Just give me a second, because you mentioned Showore earlier, and we are discussing this, and because we've mentioned Liz Truss, I want us to take it one step back. When Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, there was COVID. There were lockdown. People were asked not to go outside. Meanwhile, they were having some activities inside.
Yeah.
These are leaders. Now, it took the actions of people that work with them to say this is wrong. And because this is wrong, we'll bring it to the public. So that the public will see that this person that is telling us to do this is not abiding by the rule. So then that is an example. I'll take another example that Showore was, even though I disagree with him on certain things, especially his idea of revolution, and I don't know how he's going about it. But recently, Showore was handling a case where somebody leaked a document showing that the FCT minister in Nigeria, in the person of Wike, was allocating land illegally to his son. That person was bundled and thrown away in the cell and forgotten there. It took the pressure from Showore and Co. for that person to be identified and released. So it's about the people. And this person was, bundled and thrown away. The people that were working there kept mute.
Okay.
Nobody indicated to media houses.
You've said enough. Let me respond before I lose my line of thought. We're talking about followers, what they can do. Yeah. And I'm telling you, Nigerian government is wicked.
There's another dimension.
Wait, I'll tell you, I'll prove that to you. They don't have to go far. And very, very oppressive. Do you remember what happened in the Lekki massacre? NSAS, yes or no? I know you don't answer questions. Do you remember what happened? Yes or no?
I have my recollections.
What happened? Tell our viewers.
If we go into that, it's another subject. It's another subject.
Okay, we don't want to go into that. But just to tell you that Nigerians have risen so many times as followers to say you are not doing the right thing. They have been shouting from the rooftops. They have been saying, Nigeria, you need to do well, you need to do better. How many times have people been crushed for demonstrating? I'm not talking of the ones of people who are seeking for self-determination. That's still another totally complete different ballgame.
Yeah.
So how do you describe that? I'm not seeking an answer from you, but it's to tell you that our people, we agitate, we hold our leaders accountable. Nothing has happened. You mentioned the FCT minister. Somebody in this country, they call it whistleblowing, right?
Exactly.
Somebody blew a whistle, something was going under. What is the leader of the security agency supposed to do? Isn't that crime? We have the police, we have the SSS, we have the DS, all of them. What did they do?
Because the people are not putting pressure on them.
No. Somebody has done what he is supposed to do, brought that information out to the public. He wants him to be the whistleblower, be the police, be the DSS. Is that what you are saying?
Well, then it goes back to the question of accountability we are talking
Good.
about.
So the accountability starts from the head. When the head is bad, down, it's going to be rotten completely.
Prof, do you agree?
I think if we keep talking about this, we're not going to end today.
Exactly.
I think the issue is...
No, I mean, that's why we are here. Let's get it out.
Everybody needs to be accountable. I mean, the leaders have to be accountable, even the followers. Because at the end, even the followers become leaders. And that's always a problem. Because of sometimes you see that many people, even from the diaspora, say, okay, yes, when I get there, I will change. They get there and the same culture, they still get into the same culture. We also need to educate our followers so that they know what to do when they get to that position. So for me, accountability is not just for the leaders, but also for the followers. As a follower, no matter, I get what you're trying to say, Oscar, that sometimes they're accountable, but they are forced, they are oppressed, but you shouldn't stop talking. That's the only way things would happen. That's the only way things will change. Because if not, then why are we here? You're giving up. But definitely our leaders, they also need to know. And that's why I said from the beginning, I believe leaders should serve. And one important thing about service is accountability. And that's one big issue that many countries really don't have. We need accountable leaders.
Okay, let me ask you now. I've expressed my opinion enough. Yeah. Let me ask you, how do you think our leaders can be made accountable?
You mean our political leaders?
Yes, our political leaders. Yeah, that's because if we get our political leaders right, a lot of things would change and will be right in Nigeria. So, how do you have any idea of how that?
I think first is to have the right structures in place. Because when the structures are in place, then you will be accountable. Because you can't be accountable when there's nothing to be accountable for. So you have to put the right structures in place. So, okay, yes, I'm going to be the Minister of Education. What are those things you expect the Minister of Education to be doing? What are those things you expect the Minister of Interior, anything to be doing? So it needs to be clear. Because when we have those things, and that's why the plan as the president or as the prime minister, these members of my cabinet, this is what you expect them to do. And if they don't do that, then there are issues. You have seen it. You gave many examples about the UK. That's where we are all based. And when this person is not doing it, the person would resign. So the structure has to be there. And when the structure is there, we as followers know this is what we expect from our leaders. And they have KPIs. Even in the industry, these are the key performance indicators I need to work with. And immediately, if they don't do that, you vote them out if they refuse to stay. In the next 4 years, you vote them out because they're not. I know where you're going to, Oscar, so let's not even go there. I know what you're going to say, but the truth is, there needs to be clear, there needs to be a structure. And that's how you hold people accountable.
Well, let me make one comment. In 2000, when you talk about voting people out and all those things, in 2016, 23rd June 2016 to be precise, there was this Brexit referendum when Britain wanted to leave. And the Conservative was in power then. And that was part of their manifesto in 2015 that won them election overwhelmingly. Before then they had a hung parliament with the Liberal Democrats. Now, down the line, when they were trying to, the accountability issue, David Cameron, the Prime Minister, resigned. Because he didn't believe in Brexit. Yes, he led the Remain votes and lost. He said, at this time, I'm not the right person to implement Brexit. People have spoken. He left. That's accountability, one. 3 years down the line, when they are now implementing this Brexit, he had so many issues and so on. Now, people were asking, why did you even go into this Brexit referendum? It was Laura Kunzberg, the one that presents Sunday morning politics.
Yeah,
BBC.
the BBC news anchor.
He was interviewing.
anchor,
he was
but the
interviewing
program.
Philip Hammond. Then 2019, he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, equivalent of the Prime Minister. Sorry, Finance Minister. The man said, if you make a campaign promise in your manifesto, and upon that promise and your manifesto, you are voted into power, that becomes binding on you. Our politicians, they have manifestos, manifesto of renewed hope, manifesto of change, and so on. We have seen what they have outlined they will do when they get into power, and they have not done any of them. Who is to blame in that case? Just oppose it with the quote I gave to you about a top-ranking politician said, if you make a campaign promise, you are now bound by it. Who are you going to blame?
I mean, both parties are to blame. Of course, at the end, they have failed in their promise. What do? The same way reasonable people will do, the followers, you will hold them accountable. Because people are going to promise different things. It's a manifesto. People would, even to be fair, I don't think it's unique to Nigeria, where people promise. Politicians are always, they have the sweet mouth. They will say what they won't, sometimes they won't do. To be fair, sometimes they even want to do it. But see what happened with the pandemic. See what happened with the terrorist attack. Sometimes you go into, and that's what we call adaptive leadership. Sometimes you go, or traditional leadership, you go with the right mindset, but things can happen. And you have to change your manifesto. Think about Bush. What happened? When he became president, 9/11 happened. That was not his plan. It just came. So even the manifesto he must have had, he could not have stuck to it. But it's not left to him as a leader to explain to the followers and say, okay, this is why I didn't
Problem in constitution. Has anything dramatic happened in the Nigerian politics that would make them alter their manifesto?
I think for you, Oscar, I think we have to look at. We have glasses here. Yeah. You can look at this glass and look at it as half empty or look at it as half full.
Yeah.
In my case, I'm always the optimist that we need to look at it as half full. Because if not, there's always a reason for something to be negative. When I assess a student, I was assessing a PhD student, and no matter how good the thesis is, I can fail that thesis. I can look for what's the bad thing there to fail. But I will go with the mentality that I want to pass the student, except the student tells me why he or she should fail. So I think as Nigerians, we need to go with our optimism. And that is the only way things are going to, if you're going to believe that the government would always be bad, then definitely the government will be bad. We need to give them a chance. Anything that
Prof, let me tell you. We have been looking at the Nigerian glass as half full since 1960. I'm a very optimistic human being. Every day I wake up, I say this is a new day for me, and I'm going to achieve what I've never achieved before. That's my mindset. But sometimes my previous employer, he said you can't argue with mathematics. 2 + 2 is 4. Looking at Nigeria from independence, every successive administration, it kind of tries to perform poorly, better than. It's a case of who would perform worse or poorly than the previous one. In the 80s, let's not even go that far. We know how much a liter of petrol was in 2015, 2016, 17, up until 2 years ago. We know how the public schools are faring, the healthcare sector, the economy, even the politics. Before, there was some time votes used to count, but now it's like it's going down and there is no hope for the future. Do you still want us to be optimistic? Look at the statistics, look at the index. As of 2014-15, Nigeria was the largest economy. Down the line, I think they are about the 10th or whatever. I don't know where they are now, if they are still being graded at all. You know how many people that have come to the UK from Nigeria in the last 2 years and still coming because of the hardship? We're not talking about the security situation in the country. All the things that you use to assess a government performance in that country has been on a free flow, on a reverse gear, on the opposite direction that it's supposed to move. Do you think we still need to be optimistic?
we have no choice. We have to be optimistic.
Um,
That's the truth.
exactly. I think
Because that's what I'm trying to say. Because at the end, if you're not optimistic, if you don't hold optimism, what can you really do? You can't be pessimistic. I get where you're coming from, but I still feel that's all we can, and it's only if you're optimistic that you can really change things.
and
When you go with the
and
pessimist lens, you'll never be able to do it.
yeah, and when you are being optimistic, if I may borrow from Prof's words here, that is you looking at the future, hoping that the future will be better, being futuristic as well. And if I may come into that through that direction, Prof, as somebody who have authored several books on leadership, and many people are listening to us today, they are hoping to learn something that would maybe help them to form their leadership skills. Maybe if they want to go into politics tomorrow, or if they want to be captains of industry and all that. So based on your vast experience in leadership, how do you think aspiring leaders, whether in business, whether in government, or even in communities, how can they cultivate and strengthen these leadership capacities that will make, or leadership capabilities that will lead us to that desired future?
Good. I think so almost like a double barrel question. So there are many in that. I'm happy that we have moved away from political leadership. We became into contention. Exactly with Oscar talking about Nigeria.
So forget if you feel that way.
No.
But that's my personal view.
And I think that's the reason for this, for the podcast, so that we can always share views.
Exactly.
And at the end, we agree to disagree in different areas. But I totally understand where you're coming from. I think for me, I developed a framework years ago about these are the leadership skills, and I tend to use that in my trainings and all that. And I believe that as a leader, you should have basic competence. Like it involves 5 key skills for me. First is the technical skill. You need to have the technical ability, whether in politics, whether in business, whether in education. That's why normally a law firm, you're a barrister, and as a leader, you need to have a law degree. So it's important. So you need to understand, you need to have that technical competence normally. And one of the things I also got from my research then was business. And that's why going back to political leaders, isn't it? That many of them now try to push that they can manage a business. Because if you can manage a business, you can manage a country. If you can manage a business, you can manage a university. So business skills are key. But the basic skills of helping and supporting people, interpersonal skills are important. Because if leadership is about influence, I always say leadership is one word, and leadership is influence. And that's why people like Adolf Hitler, people like, I don't want to mention so many names, but many people these people leaders, but at the end, they've been able to influence others. And because they have interpersonal skills. So you need to be able to relate with people. You need to be empathetic. You need to be able to listen to people. You need to be able to develop people. So having that interpersonal skills are important. But beyond that, like I had said initially, is about conceptual skills, vision, planning, being entrepreneurial. So those are these. If you look at of course, in one of my books, if you see it, you see the skill. But going to your second question is, how do you develop that capacity? How do you become that next leader that Oscar really wants for the country? How do you become that leadership? That leader, the ideal leader. I always say there are 4 key ways. The first is it's about education. It's about developing yourself. It's about that. And that's why I run different leadership development programs with my skill framework. And that's for going back to Nigeria. That's why we need to invest in education. I always say leadership should be a core part of every program. So if you want to learn how to be a leader, then definitely you need to educate yourself. You want to learn about entrepreneurial leadership, do that. But another key part is a personal journey. You need to take ownership of your leadership. And for me, that is so important. This podcast is a way to learn about leadership. You can read books about leadership. It's a personal journey. So in doing that, it's key that you take ownership of your leadership. So you have to develop yourself. Read books, watch programs. That's key. But one key thing about leadership as well is mentors and role models. You need to have mentors. For me, And that's one of the things that I try to do over the years. I mentor a lot of people. I'm in a privileged position as one of the few Black professors in the university. So I want more Black professors. Right now, we're running a program on aspiring vice chancellors. You won't believe that you only have 2 Black vice chancellors in 165 UK universities.
Wow.
That's sad. So, and how will somebody become a vice chancellor when you see and you can only see 2 of you there? So mentorship is key. Role modeling is key. Even going to political leadership, the more you see the young ones there, if the young ones, okay, I can see a 30-year-old person as president, then those young ones would aspire to become president. So role modeling, mentoring, both formal and informal mentoring, those things are key. But at the end, finally, like I know that we don't have so much time, is about give people the opportunity to lead. Practice. No, this is not political. Because
Go ahead. I'm not going to interrupt you.
This is not political. In business, if you want somebody to learn how to lead, then give them the opportunity to lead. You want to become the CEO, give the person the opportunity to be one. You have to practice leadership. If you want to learn how to communicate, what do? You communicate. If you want to learn how to listen, you listen. Those things, those skills can only be learned. Because at the end, don't be afraid to fail. Fail forward. You learn from your mistakes. Leadership is a training ground. You have to learn. Not the truth, and that's why I'm usually sympathetic about leaders, because I know that not everybody can love you. They're human, but you learn from those mistakes. You fail forward, and that to me is very key. So, in becoming a leader, these are the key things you need to think about. Educate yourself. Make it a personal journey. Build capacity in doing that, and practice. Get a role model, a mentor if you don't have one, and definitely you'll be a better leader.
Wow. So, guys, you can see, like I said earlier, we are going to learn a lot from this particular activity. And I believe some of us listening to us, some of you listening to us out there, you are making your note. What I would say is that when you go to our link, we'll put the link that will take you to some of the Prof's work that you can access and read for yourself. It's a lot for us to digest here, especially with the limited time we have. So sit back, learn from us, go to our page, click the link. We'll put the links on the comment section, and you can, click on the link and read about this ideas of leadership that Prof is putting forward. Again, make sure you share our page. Make sure you spread this good news so that others will learn from what you have learned today. We are not concluding yet. We have a few more minutes to ask Prof question before he disappears.
Yeah, my native adage says, if you climb Iroko tree, gather as much firewood as you can, because you don't climb Iroko tree very often. So now we have Iroko in the house. We ride him like a hired bicycle.
So, Prof, like we made mention of, again, most of our listeners, most of our followers are Nigerians and Africans in diaspora. And, over the years, where people, Nigerians or Africans, go abroad to acquire leadership training. And like you said earlier, but when they go back into the system, it seems like the culture kind of influence most of the activities. But for the benefit of our listeners who would want to learn more today, how do you see the diaspora playing a role in reshaping leadership and governance in places like Africa, broadly speaking?
Good question, Harry. And of course, 3 of us, we are all products of migration in that sense. And for me, we are very important. We play a very key part in changing how Nigeria is going to look like. First, we have this global exposure, and we should not take it for granted. Many of us have studied here, we've gotten our PhDs here. So we're able to be the voice for the voiceless, in the sense that we can go back to Nigeria and shape things. Because why are you doing this if you cannot go back and try to be the change? Most of the time, it's easy for people to complain, but why can't you go there and change it? And that's, for me, that's one of the, of course, for me, that's one of the things I intend to do later. I'm keen on trying to see how we can support Nigeria, regardless of, so I'm really trying to see, yes, how can I play my part in shaping what Nigeria has to do? So that for me is important. So we need to think about that. And for me, one thing that is important, that contribution is, it's not about location. You can contribute from any part of the world. So let's not think about, because many people, okay, I can't contribute, it means I have to relocate. You don't need to relocate in order for you to support Nigeria. Now we have the internet, we have technology, we are doing this podcast. Many years ago, you couldn't have been able to do this, and it's going to show in different parts of the world. So there is a hybrid approach. So as people in diaspora, like sometimes I'm supporting media and I'm doing it in my office in the UK as well. So we can contribute. We don't need to relocate. You have to ask, how can we support what we're trying to do? How can we partner as well? Partnership is key. We need to collaborate with those within Nigeria, how we can partner with them, how can we support them? And I do a lot of partnership. I support in the ways I can. Of course, as a capacity builder, as a role model, as a mentor, you need to try to do that, because that's the way we can do it. Because we are privileged to be part of the system. We know how leadership, Oscar was talking about how leadership should look like. So we know how these things are. So at the end, we need to be able to advise. If they're not going to listen, I know we're going to go to them, not listen. But at least we have done our part and we have played our part by doing it. And that for me is so important. And finally, as people of diaspora, we should not be afraid. We should identify as people that have come from there. We should not reject where we are coming from. And of course, we have seen it in recent times where people don't want to identify as
Nigerians.
No, I didn't say Nigerians.
If you say Nigerians, you are saying Peruvians. Because of the way Nigeria treated them, they don't want to identify with them.
Exactly. So people don't want to, of course, and it's you get where they're coming from, and everybody has the right to their own views. And I always strongly believe in being authentic. So you shouldn't blame somebody. The person says, "Oh, I don't want to identify as a Nigerian. Nigeria didn't treat me well, or Ghana didn't treat me well." So people can do that. But at the end, people from diaspora, if you're going to support your country, then you should be proud. You should keep that connection. You should tell your kids, this is where you're coming from. And by doing that, if you keep your roots, it will also make you want to do something there. It will also make you want to invest. I think it was one of the ministers that was saying that the income in Nigeria has increased drastically because of the amount of money that people have been putting into Nigeria during the Christmas season and all that.
That's work from diaspora, because people are there who are poor.
People are poor. But you can look at it in different ways. You see that many people, doctors, are leaving the US and are going to Nigeria to set up their hospitals. People are even tired and saying, okay, I don't want to stay here. I want to go back to Nigeria and be a change. People from Silicon Valley, see the fintech industry right now, the capacity is not from those based in Nigeria. It's from people in diaspora trying to see how they can support Nigeria. So a lot of people are clearly trying to do that by going back to Nigeria to do things. So people in diaspora should try to see what we can do going forward. So yes,
I know. Elder may not. I agree with some of these.
Much as I don't agree with that, that's Prof's position. I've put my views a lot out in this podcast, and still my personal view. So I just want to say, Prof, thank you so much for coming. And I know we wouldn't exhaust this topic today, and I hope you come again when we invite you. Thank you so much.
I think thank you very much. And for me, it's a pleasure. I'm so happy that you're doing this. And it's good that people are listening to what we have to say here. For me, what is important is, at the end, leadership is not about position. It's about the impact you make in the lives of others. It's about giving back. And that is, for all the listeners, I know I've said a lot of things today, but the key thing is, as a leader, as a follower, whose life have you impacted in the last few days, on the last few weeks, in the last few years? If your role is to try to help people, then regardless of where you are, you'll be a better person. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
Well, you heard it from the horse's mouth, like my uncle would say. So thank you very much, Prof, for this I would, all of us in the house would agree that it's been a very productive evening, having constructive conversations. Even though Elder here may not agree with some of your positions, but it's good, and that is why we have this forum to for people to air their views. We may have divergent views, but at the end of the day, the message is clear. We are here to learn. We learn, we educate, we bring out those discussions that will also instigate further discussion, that will make people to go and research about certain subjects so that they can benefit from such conversations. So once again, like Elder said already, we want to appreciate you for coming, and this is not the end of the discussion. And like you said, there are many theories of leadership, and we'll come back to look at leadership in maybe in the business setting and other environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, viewers, it's been an interesting evening, and you would agree with me that it's been very, the discussion here has been very inspiring, and I would encourage you to continue to follow Glasscast podcast, because we are bringing yet and yet more informative episodes. Remember to subscribe to our page, like our page, follow us, and always listen to our weekly episode. Till we see you next week. Goodbye.